Wall Street ends Friday and the week higher, with the S&P 500 closing above the 5,000 mark for the first time. The U.S. Labor Department revises December's inflation print lower than first reported. Most Asian markets are shut for the Lunar New Year holidays, and the gift Nifty suggests a big gap up for the Indian market. Oil prices post a weekly gain, with Brent currently hovering around the $81 a barrel mark after hopes of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas fade. Gold edges lower for the week as rising yields hurt the safe haven asset. Bitcoin tops the $48,000 mark, the highest level since March of 2022. And the consumer price inflation print for the month of January and the industrial production data for the month of December is expected today, with estimates hinting at a possible moderation in the inflation on the back of a slowing food price rise. Here, MotoCorp reports a strong Q3 with a 50% jump in profit and margin at 13.9%. ONGC reports an in-line third quarter with crude realizations at $81.6 per barrel. The third quarter earnings of Divi's Lab missed the mark on all fronts, but the management remains confident of double-digit growth in FY25. And Paytm parent 197 forms an advisory committee chaired by former SEBI chairman Damodaran to work with the board in further strengthening compliance. Coal India, Bharat Forge and HAL will also be in focus ahead of third quarter earnings today. Hey guys, good morning and welcome to Power Breakfast. I'm Pavitra Parekh. Those are the top headlines that we have for you this Monday morning. There's a lot to track. But, the global cues that we're getting are pretty limited because all of Asia is shut. The handover from the US has been very positive, but not really getting any cues from Asia because of the Lunar New Year holidays. In fact, this entire week, we are likely to see pretty limited cues from the Asian markets. What's doing very well, though, is the gift Nifty, and it is implying that the open for our markets should be well in the green. Almost 100 points higher is where we're at on the gift Nifty. So let's see if we can really sustain and, hold on and build onto these highs as well. But like I was mentioning, the U.S. market and ended Friday's session quite mixed. So the Dow slipped around 54 points. The S&P 500 gained around 0.6%. It also closed above that 5,000 mark, like we were mentioning, for the first time ever. And the tech-heavy index, the Nasdaq Composite, surged nearly 200 points to end the session as well. In fact, if you look at all three major indices, they ended in the green, posting the fifth straight week of gains. So there you have it on your screen. You have the Nasdaq, which is up 2.3%, the S&P 500 up almost 1.5% for the week. But CNBC's Steve Kovac is with us now to bring us a wrap of all of the action that played out on Friday on Wall Street. Steve.
Markets were mostly positive on Friday, with the S&P closing above 5,000 for the first time ever on positive inflation and earnings news. The Dow lost 55 points, but the S&P 500 added 29 points to hit that record level, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained 197 points. The Biden administration today announced a $5 billion investment deal to develop advanced computer chips. The new public-private consortium is being funded through the CHIPS and Science Act and aims to boost the semiconductor sector here at home. And that investment news coming after Wall Street Journal reporting that OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is looking for funding to overhaul the global semiconductor industry. The Journal reports he's looking for the staggering sum of $5 to $7 trillion and in talks with several investors, including the United Arab Emirates. And big banks are drastically cutting the amount of fees they take from overdrafts, but Americans are still paying a lot in penalties. America's three biggest banks collected 25% less in overdraft fees last year as they face pressure from regulators to reduce those fees. That's according to regulatory filings. JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America still reported a combined $2.2 billion in overdraft fees in 2023, but that's roughly $700 million less than the previous year. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you, Mumbai.
All right, Steve, thanks a lot for bringing us all of that action. In fact, staying with the U.S., like we just mentioned, the S&P 500 closed above that 5,000 mark for the first time on Friday. So let's listen in to what David Kelly, Chief Global Strategist at JP Morgan Asset Management, has to say on what this record really means for the market. Listen in.
It's a benchmark. I mean, I'm old enough to remember S&P 500 back in the 1990s. So it's remarkable. I think if you look back over the decades, what you've seen is a huge increase in the profit share of GDP, in the value of financial assets. So what we see is that companies can really do very well, even in a slow-growing economy, because that's really been kind of the history of the last 30 years. And I think that's what we're seeing. Our base case for 2024 is 2024, 2% growth, zero inflation, zero recessions, inflation coming down to 2%, 4% unemployment. That's what we think is going to happen. And that's still, the first month gone, that's still where we are. We think it's actually a very stable environment. If some shock occurs, maybe we have a recession, but we don't see that. We don't see inflation reigniting. So it's just very stable. I think that it's that stability that's allowing the market just grind higher.
All right, that is an important word coming in on the US market, but let's also talk about what really went down across Europe, because they did end Friday's trading session quite a lot lower. So the French CAC index was down around 18 points. The DAX also was down around 37 points at the end of the trading session. And the FTSE also closed around 0.3% in the red. Now, it was really the rising yields which hurt equities, with the yield on the German 10-year bond rising for the third straight session on Friday. There you have it on your screen. Meanwhile, inflation in Germany eased to 3.1% in January versus the 3.8% rise that we had in December. So that's an important data point to track as far as the German markets go as well. And that's everything that we're looking at is in terms of the global market action. But how will all of these really impact our own markets, and what are the cues that you should track from an India market standpoint? We have Sudarshan and Nigel joining us now for the trade setup. Guys, a very good morning to both of you. Sudarshan, let me come to you first. You know, like we were mentioning, the start for our own markets will definitely be well in the green. But take us through everything we should track.
Morning, Pavitra. So, well, it seems we might build onto Friday's momentum and start today's session in the green. And the cues from US market are largely positive. The frontline indices have posted gains for fifth straight week, and on Friday, Nasdaq and S&P 500 have risen 1% each to close at record levels, while Dow Jones saw a close with minor cuts. And this positive move on the Wall Street is backed by the data coming in. On Friday, the revised inflation print for the month of December has come in lower than the numbers reported earlier. And even earnings so far have been largely better than expectations. For our market, it was all about banks in the last hour on Friday. Sharp surge in stocks like ICICI Bank and PSU banks have helped Nifty Bank gain nearly 800 points from its intraday low. And some of the stocks in Nifty that saw a big move were Apollo Hospitals and Grasim on positive management commentary after their earnings. Talking about mid-caps, they were relatively underperformers on Friday, and this was because many of the stocks in the mid-cap index reacted sharply to their weak earnings print, and the sharp downtick was seen in stocks like Ramco Cements, PFCA and MRF, and those stocks have fallen up to 8%. I also want to talk about stocks that have seen huge delivery buying, and in that first name is Zomato. On Friday, it saw delivery buying of more than rupees 1,500 crore, and that is 3 times of its last 1 month average. And the second is SBI, which for the last few days have been seeing huge delivery buying, and on Friday it was of more than rupees 1,200 crore. On to institutional activities, on Friday, FIs bought shares of rupees 142 crore, while DIIs have sold shares of rupees 422 crore in the cash market. Lastly, GIFT Nifty is indicating a start with healthy gains for our market.
All right, so we'll definitely start almost 100 points higher, but let's see if we can build onto that or hold on to that or not. So Darshan, thanks a lot for taking us through those cues. But you know, like you were mentioning, we are towards the end of the earnings season, and there are a lot of these mid-cap earnings coming through. So take us through all of the weekend's worth of action.
So, yes, so first I'll start with Divi's Labs. It was a weak Q3 earnings, but commentary was positive. Company is confident of double-digit growth in FY25. EBITDA in Q3 was at rupees 489 crore against pool of rupees 620 crore. Next is Aurobindo Pharma. US sales were higher than estimated $451 million. Margin was at 21.8% against pool of 20.8%. Next is Dr. Reddy's. US FDA has classified its Bachupalli unit as voluntary action indicated in its establishment inspection report. Next is Hero MotoCorp. Earnings were in line. Margin was up 250 bips year-on-year. Company has declared interim dividend of rupees 75 per share and special dividend of rupees 25 per share. Tata Power operating numbers were below estimates. EBITDA was at rupees 2,418 crore against pool of rupees 2,860 crore. Margin was at 16.5% against pool of 18.3%. PI Industries. All the chemical names that have reported earnings so far were weak, but PI Industries has reported a strong set of earnings. Revenue was up 18%. EBITDA has risen 33% year-on-year. Bandhan Bank NI was in line at rupees 2,525 crore. Asset quality has improved sequentially but remains elevated. ONGC Q3 numbers were in line. EBITDA was at rupees 17,163 crore against poll of rupees 17,575 crore. MCX futures and options average daily turnover have risen 12% quarter on quarter. Company has also shortlisted name for the candidate post of MD and CEO. Other companies that might see impact because of results: Bajaj Healthcare, Advanced Enzymes, Pars Defense and Amber Enterprises. In other news, JSW Group has signed memorandum of understanding with Odisha government. Company will be investing rupees 40,000 crore on EV manufacturing project. Last is Paytm. Company has set up committee to strengthen compliance and regulatory matters. Former SEBI chairman M. Damodaran to chair 3-member advisory committee.
All right, that is a long list. Sudarshan, thanks a lot for filling us in with all of that action. By the way, the FTSE rejig was also announced on Friday, so a bunch of stocks will be in focus on the back of that. We'll bring you that in a bit too. But for now, Nigel is here to take us through all of the cues from the futures and options space. Nigel.
Well, morning, Pavitra. You know, in Friday's trading session, we saw a bit of a rejig of sorts on the indices because the Nifty bank that was relative underperformer, that popped up in trade. And the broader markets have been outperformers. Well, there was some selling pressure that did creep in both into the mid-cap as well as the small-cap indices. So relative underperformance, I'll be interested to see whether or not it was just a one-day blip or could we see a couple of more sessions where, in fact, we do see some bit of selling in the broader markets. Now, what took place? Why did the Nifty see such a big bounce back? Because you had a short covering bounce that played out both on the Nifty as well as the Nifty bank, and the data point perfectly is telling you that. Even the FI positioning, they covered some shorts and they added some long positions. Now, the Nifty bank, that recovered, right? It went down actually to around the 200 DMA. From there, it took some support and it bounced back up. So now it's in the middle of the 200 as well as the 20 DMA, as that data point suggests. The question is, can it get past the 20 DMA? In the past, we've seen it bounce off the 200 DMA, but it's struggling to get past the 20 DMA. On the option side, the 21,500 put, the 21,800 call, both of them are fairly active, which gives you that broad range. On the downside, you know, most of the bulls, they believe they've got this covered at around 21,500. On the upside, though, the bears, they say that, no, we're not going to let the Nifty get past this 22,000 odd mark. So that's the broad range we're looking at. Support levels in the near term, 20 and 50 DMA come up for you on the screen. The gift would be suggesting a gap up. You like to see it build on to that. And also, the Nifty bank, does it have more steam after the recent underperformance? Well, answers to those questions will be later today. Back to you.
All right, we will wait by and see how that goes. Nigel, thanks a lot for laying out all of those cues for us. With that, we're going to get into our first short break on the show. But on the other side, we're tracking all of the latest in terms of the war unfolding in Gaza and the impact that it's also had on crude oil prices. Stay tuned. We'll be back in 2. Hey guys, welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast here on CNBC TV18, and let's now bring you the latest updates that we're getting from the conflict in West Asia. As Israel continues to intensify its attacks, the Israeli military says that they have discovered tunnels under the headquarters of the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees in Gaza. Israel also continues the assault in Rafah, where millions of Palestinians are currently taking refuge as well. So that is, where things currently stand right now. Israel also, is continuing the assault in Rafah, like I mentioned. And if you look at the total number of people in the past few days, they've already killed 31 Palestinians in Rafah. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also said that he has ordered the military to develop a plan to evacuate Rafah and target the Hamas battalions deployed there. The Israel military confirmed killing 2 Hamas operatives in Rafah, where the negotiations for the release of hostages are underway. A top Hamas leader has also said that a Rafah offensive could blow up the hostage negotiation. So that is the latest that we're getting in terms of the conflict in West Asia. But as Israel continues to pound Rafah and refuses to agree to Hamas's ceasefire proposal, oil prices posted a weekly gain. So if you look at Brent right now, it is currently around that $81 a barrel mark. The US had also killed a senior militant leader in Iraq, which is of course a major oil producer. This was last week. Now, despite all of these tensions, oil prices haven't really broken out of a range because this has had pretty limited impact, if you look at it, on what's really going on with crude supplies. That is why we've been pretty much around this mark for all of this week. And right now, we're at around $81 a barrel. But with that, we're going to get into a short break. When we return, MotoCorp reported a strong set of Q3 earnings. We're going to bring you all of the highlights in just a minute. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast, and let's now talk about the big earnings that the street will be reacting to today. That is Hero MotoCorp, and Sonia is here to really take us through the fine print. Sonia, strong set?
Oh, absolutely. A strong set of numbers is what Hero MotoCorp reported in this quarter. In fact, on the revenue front, it was a growth of 21% that the company saw. The EBITDA was also much higher than what the street was estimating at about 1,361 odd crores, and the EBITDA margins have improved to 13.9% versus 11.4%. The net profits for Hero MotoCorp went up 50%, coming in at 1,073 crores. Remember, for Hero MotoCorp, many things have improved. The rural demand has picked up, the operating leverage has kicked in. However, on a quarter-on-quarter basis, the margins have fallen. Last quarter in Q2, the margins were 14.1%, but it's fallen to about 13.9%. Most brokerages are bullish on the stock. In fact, CLSA has raised its target price to 5,246, while Nomura has a neutral with a target price of 5,356. Back to you.
All right, Sonia, thanks a lot for taking us through all of those highlights in terms of Hero MotoCorp's earnings. But with that, let's also bring you an exclusive now. HUL MD and CEO Rohit Java has said that the FMCG giant's growth in certain segments will triple and even quadruple over the next decade. Speaking to Shireen, Java said that the FMCG giant is using artificial intelligence tools to really forecast demand and then create customized offers for customers. Listen in to some very interesting excerpts from that conversation.
There's a huge runway for growth, and when we looked at each and every category we play in, we clearly see we're about 10 to 15 odd years behind these mega markets. In the next decade, we could be seeing some categories doubling, tripling, quadrupling.
For instance?
I mean, any category you name, for instance, just take, for example, even one category where we've been very much the leaders of market development is home care. A couple of places I believe this is still happening in a fast pace today when I come back is beauty care and in packaged foods, where I think the pace of transformation will be even more fast. We have now AI signals for our demand forecasting, so we don't need human intervention. We can, in fact, they forecast better. We get data signals of all our customers, what they're buying, what they're ordering even when we're not there. So in the, in the evening, they want to order something, if they're running out, and we're able to market to them using AI. We can create customized offers. On e-commerce, and digital commerce is already the fastest growing channel for us, and we are gaining competitiveness there, and that's going to be clearly a place that we want to lean in on, because that is going to grow and will more than double over it's today as contribution to our business easily, I believe, in the next 5-10 years.
All right, that is the word coming in from Rohit Java of HUL. But with that, we've completely run out of time on this edition of Power Breakfast. So we're going to wind down on that note. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We have Bazaar Morning Call on the other side.